feeling today. I think I'll stand. Keep my feet in the ground.
Side, and then you can come up someone if you want.
Yeah.
Thank Phil.
Thank you. My granny used to say, travel broadens the mind. They only ever went to the islands, you know, for Cole or Tyree or Lewis, just for a holiday in the summer. So when I said I was going to Australia, she said, "Oh, that's a big island." But I'm here as a storyteller, and I'm just here to say to you how difficult it is in Australia. No. How difficult it is to be in this space to tell stories and to sing songs. It was great in the wee room in there because people were closer together and the energy is just totally different. It's much harder work to spread your energy, my energy, across this distance where people are that far away. I wouldn't throw a ball that far. So I just wanted to talk about how I'm trying some new things. This is, I don't usually tell stories that are true, factual things, because there could be an expert in the audience, as surely there will be tonight, who would correct me. And not that anybody would yell at me from the floor at all, anyway. I just decided to try a story just because it was a Saturday afternoon and I was supposed to be vacuuming, and as I backed towards the TV, I saw these men with wigs on and rather fancy coats, knee breeches, stockings and high-heeled shoes with buckles, parting the lianas and the palms in the jungle somewhere in the world. There was 4 of them. And I had to stop the vacuuming, of course, and sit down. And I discovered that it was a true story of a voyage of discovery. And since then, I've gone and looked a wee bit further. So I started looking at the facts. So this is why I've got this. Each of these links is sort of like an event in the story. And it gets sort of links onto the next. And if somebody said something important, I've made a wee note in orange. I was trying to use it as a sort of memory device. You know, some people have written books about memory code and memory maps and things. This is my wee plaything. And I tried it out, and it was very complicated at the storytelling place that I tell at. But the story is worth telling just a wee bit of. I have to say that I didn't know anything of this side of history, and even the name, Condamine, it's kind of Australian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it's actually French because he was born in 1701 in Paris, luckily to a very well-to-do family. And he went to one of the best schools, lycée in Paris, and he did well in humanities and science. It was a he, of course. And all the girls would be at home sewing. And so he did very well and had a good mate, loved maths, and he was probably 18 and not sure what to do. He finished school, but he had a stroke of luck. Turned out the French government, for the first time, decided to create a lottery and encourage the citizens to contribute and buy tickets. And Condamine, his name was Charles Marie de la Condamine, he and a mate got together and went, hang on, the tickets cost this much, the prizes are this much. Now it so happened his mate became Voltaire, but at the time he had his real name, Francois Arouet. The 2 of them went, oh, does that mean, yes. They went out and bought as many tickets as they could. And they earned 500,000 livres, that was pounds in France at that time. I think they split it between them, but they were the best of buddies ever since that time. And Voltaire went on to greater things, whereas Condamine thought, well, gee, high school's finished, I'll join the army. Joined the army, got caught up in some, you know, like, did you realise that the French and the Spanish fought over territory in Italy? he was there in the war. He did pretty well. He ended up with an award, stuck it for a year. You see, he was so well to do, he didn't really need to go out and work, earn money. His father was a secretary to the king. And so he thought, well, I could go on a little exploration, a little journey. And so somehow or other he got invited on board this boat and went exploring along the Mediterranean, like we'd all love to do. Sardinia, Corfu, all the islands, and ended up at Constantinople. And he had a way with words. He wrote things down in a bit of diary, kept a track of it. And that really set him up. He presented it to the academy, as you did in those days. I used to think presenting it meant you just handed over the pieces of paper. No. He would get up, like you might have seen in some movies, in front of a whole crowd of people and read what he'd written. It went down quite well, and he was offered then, from the academy, a chance to be an explorer, to go to South America, the new Spanish territories in the New World. And being a mathematician, he was given the position, but there was a guy called Bruget who was even better a mathematician than he was, and there was another scientist called Godin. The three of them were sent to South America, the first Europeans to go into the New World, French, to find out if it was true. Did the planet Earth sort of get fatter in the middle and then narrower at the poles, or did it get narrower in the middle or fatter at the poles? Newton said this way, and Descartes said that way. So the French and the English were having a bit of a political position fight here. So one team was sent off to Lapland, and it just so happened that our friend Condamine, with his various people, surgeons, and a couple of Spanish speakers from the army in Spain, were shipped off. They were to go to the Andes. Sounds easy. Took them a year to get across the ocean, over Colombia, over the Panama, round in a boat to Ecuador, then overland into Quito, and they fell out. Everything that could have possibly have gone wrong on an expedition went wrong. Godin fell for this woman in Haiti on the way past, and spent most of the funds for the expedition on a big diamond for her. The others were not pleased when they found that out. And there was a bit of jealousy about who was actually the leader. Can you imagine that? I'm the leader. No, you're the leader. No, I'm the leader. So in the time that they travelled, they split up several times. There was a bit on the TV where one of them got very sick, and the two others thought, that's it, we're leaving them. Left them in this shack in the middle of nowhere and left them. Condamine comes to, and must have had some sort of way of finding his way, and he's no idea where he is, what time it is, but he has to get to Quito. That's where they're heading, and bad luck, they can meet up in Quito. Then they're able to go and do their measurements. They climbed 50 volcanoes because they had to get right up high, and they took 50 measurements. They were triangulation. It's all about geometry, never my strongest subject. And they worked out what was the degree of latitude, how long it was, just one at the equator. And they could compare the measurements they took in France with what they found in South America. And they were about to celebrate the fact that they'd found their answer when word came from Lapland, well, how they got it, I don't know, to say that the other team had proved it right. They had proved it, they didn't need to keep going. Well, there was a bit of a tantrum, a bit of a fight, and so once the measurements were finished, I think the distance was 67.3 miles. That was in 1 degree of latitude at the equator. And it turns out that if you checked it out today, they were only 50 yards out. That's not bad, is it? For 1743. So, in the end, there was a race to get back to report on what they'd found. So Bouget, the mathematician, he headed off. Go down, the one who kind of liked South American girls decided to stay in Lima. He'd met somebody. And this is what's interesting about this Condamine. He goes, no, I've seen this big river. I think I'd like to get on a raft and go and see what the land is like as it goes to the sea. He was the first to navigate the Amazon. And he drew pictures and made notes, and probably because of the Jesuit school he was at when he was a kid, of course he would pull into these missions on the side of the banks of the Amazon and would be welcomed, and he would find information and maps given to him by the Jesuit priests. And he had found out amazing things. He found out about rubber and latex coming from trees. He found out that when it came to quinine, that thing that would help with malaria, it had to be the red bark, not the white bark. Or it could be the other way around. And he found out about curare and the poison and how they got it from frogs. And he found out about the natives and how they lived. And in his spare time, when he was sitting watching the river go by, he sort of worked out if we could change the system of measuring distance. He sort of got the rudiments of the metric system together, wrote it down. And when he got to the mouth of the Amazon, wow, did a bit more explaining. Oh, luckily, he had his scientific instruments with him, so he could do more measurements. And luckily, too, he had taken the precaution of dipping cloths in this latex so that he could wrap the material around his scientific instruments and they wouldn't get damaged as they came down the river or got washed overboard. So he spent his time, didn't want to go straight back to France because there was a war going on and it wasn't safe to get on a French boat. So he ended up on a Dutch boat, went to Amsterdam, met a few people there, shared what information he'd found out about the Amazon, and then got back to Paris. It was the story of the Amazon that sealed it. That's what made him famous. He was accepted into the academy, and he was going really well until smallpox struck. Now, I forgot to say, as a child he'd had smallpox, but luckily he was in a rich family, so he recovered. And as soon as he heard what was happening, and it was in Paris and it had affected some of the royal family, he immediately started saying, we'll have to have inoculation. This will be the only thing that will beat this. And he started presenting papers again at the academy about inoculation, smallpox. He did it once, was dismissed. He did it twice, another year, another paper. He did it 5 times. And he was getting to be an old man by this time. It wasn't till, I think it was 1773, he died in 74. They finally looked at the papers again and said, he's got some interesting points here in his paper. I think we'll take on what you're saying about this, and we need to spread it around the science community. Edward Jenner picked it up later. The cowpox thing just clinched it. So he died a happy man. A bit deaf, short, really big nose. John Boswell, who was travelling through from Scotland, said he was really deaf and really short. But for a man who liked to make the most of opportunity, who persevered, who was curious about the world, I don't think you can beat him. So here's to Condamine, and thank you for listening. Check him out if you're interested. There's lots more than I've told you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, that's brilliant. So when we go to the banks of the Condamine in future, I don't suppose he ever actually went there?
No. But they would have named him after him because he was a famous explorer.